Hi, my name is Alex. I live in this rather small farming city. We have a church on a hill and a very local grocery store. And somehow, there's a Dollar General too. Life here is rather simple and easy. I wake up, I turn on my studio, and I broadcast music for the town. It's nothing special, just classic rock and some country, but I make decent money off it. One thing I noticed, our signal never go past the town borders. My only guess is something to do with the magnetosphere, but I'm no scientist. About a year ago, around the middle of August, something weird started happening. Military trucks and other large equipment started being hauled in. They took over the church as a base of operations. They even put large fences and barbed wire all around it. Whatever they were doing must have been serious. It wasn't but a few days after that they start testing the air raid siren we have. The only way to get to it was in my shed, as I owned the radio station and enough power supply to run the siren in the station if there was a blackout. So, guess what the boys did? If you said annexed my station and shed, you are correct. It wasn't a big deal. They sounded like they needed it for something. They've been paying me twice what I was making, so I'm not angry at all. So I've been staying at my little brother's and his new wife's home for the past 2 years. The day I moved in was all nice and happy, until at exactly 1 p.m. All the military guys started corralling all the people to their homes in a rush too. They seemed scared, like a lot of them had seen a ghost. Silly thought, I know. However, they weren't taking no's, as they were rough with the townsfolk. Looking through the blinds, I see they were all done getting everyone home. Maybe they were running some sort of test? Well, turns out that less than 10 minutes later, we hear the siren go off.
Stay inside and go to the nearest room without windows. If you can, close the blinds and cover your ears and eyes. This is not a drill. Do not leave for any reason. If someone is caught leaving, they will be marked as a threat. If you hear knocks at the window or door, do not answer even if it's your family or friends, and even if they are in a dire situation. Again, this is not a drill, and we will let you know when to come out.
It goes on like this for a few hours. I was in my room, which luckily is located in the basement. I can hear someone upstairs slamming on our doors. I can hear my brother talking to his wife. "We gotta go check, honey. It's my friend Aaron," he said in a hushed tone. I slowly walk up the stairs and hear his wife say, "Well, here, take your gun and at least be ready for anything." As I got to the top of the stairs, I creaked the door open to see what is going on. "Aaron, I'm going to open the door, but you gotta run in fast, okay?" I can hear a muffled voice. It wasn't Aaron. It was something deep sounding. I felt immediate fear and closed my door before they opened their front door. I heard Aaron say, "And ye shall overthrow their altars, and break their pillars, and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and destroy the names of them out of that place." After that, I heard shots fire. It was my brother, I'm sure of it. His wife Sammy was screaming and tried to come into the basement with me, but I locked the door. I heard the false Aaron walk up to Sammy as she was screaming. It was then I heard the cracking of bone and twisting of flesh. Her cries went silent, and so was the home. I can hear Aaron gorging and eating them. I kept my face covered as the smell of blood wafted through the air. I can see the viscous and fresh blood of Sammy flowing through the bottom of the door. It wasn't long before I heard this thing knock at my door. "I know you can hear me, child.
Do not be afraid, as we are here to cleanse the sinners, leaving only the saints. You are not a sinner. You can let me in.
I didn't know what to do. I was frozen, but it felt like it was speaking in my brain. The sound of horns was ringing in my head. Child, you cannot ignore me. I am all that was and will be. I know you. I uncovered my ears and checked up the stairs. I noticed the door got unlocked, so I yelled back, "What did you do to my brother? What is it you want?" At this point, I'm nearly pissing myself in fear. Your brother and his wife committed a grave, unforgivable sin. We cannot let it slide. Let me in, child. You need not be afraid. I sat there thinking, and I slowly walked up the stairs. It felt automatic, and I couldn't stop my movements. There is no fighting this. You are a saint. You will obey and listen. I do not know what to do at this point. What did he mean I'm a saint? It was then I slowly started to twist the doorknob. At full force. The sirens were wailing once again, and I regained my consciousness and composure. I quickly locked the door again and ran down the stairs. I can hear the thing say, "We will meet again, my child. Go now, on God's good grace." This voice was loud and thundered in my head, leaving my ears to ring. I can only hear the siren afterward and what sounded like giant wings flapping in the distance.
Civilians' coast is clear. I repeat, coast is clear. We ask you to stay in your homes so we can do some research. Please bear with us a little longer. Thank you.
It clicks off, and the sirens start to die down. It wasn't but a few minutes when I hear,
"Holy fuck. They got another. Search the house for survivors."
I slowly opened the door and yelled, "I'm alive! Please, help me!" It was then the door swung open as a large man pulled me into the kitchen. I found myself around 5 men armed to the teeth, pointing guns at me. "Test them," one guy said. I was immediately shoved against the wall, and the guy testing me grabbed my arm and stuck a small needle and injected something. "What the fuck are you injecting in my arms, you nutjobs?" They all stared at me, waiting for a reaction. However, nothing happened. They all collectively sighed in relief, and the one that tested me said, "You're coming with us. We have to ask you some questions." I looked around, and the bodies of my brother and sister-in-law weren't there. All I could see were black ashes scattered throughout the kitchen and by the front door. "What happened to them?" I asked. They seemed to ignore my question, and we walked outside. I can hear crying throughout the town. It looks like entire families were just erased out of existence. Some people never came out to look around. They're all probably scared shitless. I'm not even sure how many disappeared, but it must have been dozens. We arrive at the old church. They opened the front gate and let us in. I can see it was patrolled by drones. Everywhere I look, there was a camera and no one was stationed outside. We get inside, and it looks like they removed all the pews and the altar. Countless days I spent praying with my brother in these very halls, running around the pews after hours while our father talked to the priest. I started to cry. I missed the little brother I once raised and played with. Seeing all of that stripped and replaced by all kinds of machines, tables and chairs, almost 100 different monitors, each with a person watching hours of surveillance footage. My brother gets slaughtered like a lamb, and now this. It was way too much to handle. I broke into tears, and so I shouted, "Okay, I'm here now. What the hell do you want?" "Sir, we know this is all too much, but we have to talk to you." I calmed down. I never was confrontational, so I took a deep breath and kept following them. They led me into the basement. High-end security scanned their eyes, and looks like a robot arm came out of the wall and poked them with a needle. Must be the same stuff they used on me. We passed through the security and walked down a hallway to a room at the end. This was the pastor's room. He lived in the church, but he died a few years back. He was a good man. Feels kinda wrong going to his room. How many hours has this man poured into his community to save us in a time of sorrow? I remember it like it was yesterday. My father passed away when I was 16, leaving the radio station to me. I remember the priest here consoled me and said, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." It was a beautiful funeral. The whole town came by and hugged my brother and me. We only had each other at this point, so I made it my mission to always take care of him. I saw the photo my dad and the priest took together. He was so happy back then before Mom ran off. He was hardworking and always gave his time to help others in need. A good man. I'm happy I got to know my father, and I remember talking to the priest in this room about some of the funny things about him. The memories came flooding back, and I began to whelp a little. I took a deep breath in and out. I had to swallow my feelings down as I was dissociating. It was then I was asked to sit at the old oak table and wait here. The man who escorted me here asked if I needed anything. A Coke?" I said, quietly holding my face in my hands. "Got it." The officer leaves the room. A few minutes later, someone else entered with 2 Cokes and a notepad. "Hello." He looks at his notepad. "Alex, I'm the leader of this op, and we have some questions about what you saw. Here, you asked for a Coke?" He handed it to me, and I took it, opened it, and took a large gulp after I let out a sigh. I want to know where my brother and sister-in-law are before I answer anything. The man looked at me in the eyes and took his sunglasses off. And I saw his eyes. They were all white, like he has cataracts. "Your brother and sister-in-law are gone. We cannot help them now." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "And you survived and resisted. We need to know why." I slammed my hands on the table. "Bullshit! People don't just disappear. I can't believe the gall of your suit-and-tie bootlickers." He tossed a file he was holding in a notepad at me. "Read. It will explain it all." I opened the file. Inside was a series of pictures and notes. The pictures looked to be giant winged beasts with just floating eyes and wings. This was in front of my home. I started to sweat and turned to the next page. It changed shape to Aaron. And the last picture was it grabbing my brother's head and ripping it off. I remember dropping the pictures and throwing them up on the floor. "What the fuck is that thing?" The man put his glasses back on and handed me a tissue. "It's an angel, Alex. Your brother and sister-in-law sinned. I'm sorry, but they are gone. We don't know where they took them, but it looks like they are just gone, with no trace but black ashes that aren't even made of carbon. It's an element we have yet to classify." I got myself together and asked, "Why are you guys wanting to talk to me then? I didn't do this." He pointed to the file and said, "Keep looking." As I was flipping through, the angel turned back to its normal form, and you can see straight into the home past the kitchen to the door I was behind. But I wasn't. I was in front of the door. I was staring at it. Why? What the fuck? Why didn't it kill me? The agent took the files back and said, few people survive this. So, let's get down to the point. You are a saint. Somehow, you are on a white list with these beings. And so far, you and I are the only known ones. He sighs and says, that's why we came here. To find you. Everyone else in this town is either gone or scared shitless. We have to make them forget everything. I grabbed my head in confusion, running my hands through my jet black hair in a feeble attempt to calm myself. Why me? I said quietly. I can feel my heart racing. The heat was rushing to my face. You never sinned, and it's physically impossible for you to as well. You can continue your life here. Or you can choose to come with us. But in a year, they will come back. I thought to myself, I got nothing left. My family is all gone, and my job was taken from me. I want to stay, but I feel like I'm safe with these people. Can we wait a year to see what happens? I asked shakily. Yes, we will monitor the area. However, every year on August 16th, this will happen again. We already sealed the area around the town off, so no radio communications can enter or leave the area. We may ask you to come out during the event so we can monitor you. I took another large drink of my soda. Okay, I'll do it. With the idea of talking about the thing that took my only family away, I was furious. Shortly after, I was released and went home. It's July. Nothing happened since, and the missing townsfolk were replaced with agents, but no one other than me seems to notice. Life has been normal, and I was allowed to use my radio again. I am counting down the days till this happens again. Will I be prepared? How can I stop them? I don't know. What I know is, as the days draw closer, I can hear the whispering of the above. I know they are watching. Once they come down here, I will know where my brother is. Until then, I will keep you guys posted. And please, if you see my town, turn back and head home. It's not worth your life. Hi, Alex here. I thought you guys wanted to get an update. Also, thank you for the kind words. It's been rather hard. My brother's death and his wife's screams are burned into my brain. Another issue is, the trumpets are getting louder, and I'm starting to hear chanting and bells chiming. It's a day in and day out, non-stop. I've been contemplating suicide. Just end it all, you know. I find myself about to go down that hole of no return and welcome the release of death. However, anytime I get brave enough and about to pull that hammer back, I black out. I wake up usually on my bed with the gun on the floor where I was sitting. Whatever is going on, whatever these fucking things want is beyond me. That's not the worst of it. It's when I sleep. That's when the true nightmare begins. I feel like if I tell you guys this, it may help me cope a little. In the last message I sent out, everyone was rather nice. It's so much to unpack. And if you have a weak stomach, please skip ahead if you want to. It all started last night. My dream, well, nightmare, began with just a black canvas. It was just me, mindlessly drifting in a seemingly infinite void. But I couldn't wake up or move. That's all there was. Just me in the dark floating. I started to panic as it still to this very minute feels real. And with that, it felt like this won't ever end. In my head, what felt like decades passed as I float in pure darkness with only my thoughts. It wasn't much longer, maybe a year or two, it's hard to tell to be honest, that I started seeing something in the distance slowly approaching me. Or I was approaching it. In the distance, there was a long hallway with no end. The hallway looked like the hospital halls I used to frequent, reminded me of how my dad lost his life to cancer. All the years we spent, the countless hours crying and praying for him to get better. So yeah, I know these halls as if it was my home. It was scary how accurate this was, down to the light blue stripe in the off-white color of the walls. I finally floated to this hall and landed on the floor. I kept looking at the checkered pattern floor, thinking to myself about how life would be if my father survived, and if my mother never ran away. Would my brother still be alive? Sorry for getting a little emotional. I just have to let you guys know exactly how it was. I decided to swallow my fears and judgment. As I walked down the hall, the only sound was my heavy footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. After what felt like miles of walking, I came across a door. It's my father's room. I see a light on the bottom of the door. I can hear something else. It was my dad calling out to me. So I rushed through the door and saw my dad looking like he did long ago. Young and healthy. I instantly rushed in and hugged my dad. His cologne smelled as strong as it used to. His hug back was warm and inviting. I haven't felt this happy in my life. There, champ. My oh my, you have grown. Look at you, strong as an ox, my father said robustly. Thanks, Papa. I've been working out a lot to help with depression. You don't know, but losing you was the hardest thing in my life. Well, where's little Donnie? I've missed him too. My dad tried to look behind me at the door, expecting my goofball brother to burst in. Pops? Donnie. And before I can say a word, he jumps out of the closet and yells, Dad, you're alive! I don't know how to process this. I saw my brother's ashes. Donnie? How are you here? My brother looked at me. I don't rightly know, to be honest. I was opening my door for my buddy Aaron, and next thing I know, I fell out of the closet. As my brother and father hug and catch up, I take a few deep breaths and ran my fingers through my hair, trying to find a way to tell my brother what happened. As I turn around and open my mouth, I hear the trumpets in full force. My head feels like it was going to explode. It was then I see a grotesque mass of wings circling astronomical rings. On these rings were bloodshot red eyes of varying sizes and colors. Its very presence was distorting the space around it. Its mere existence was causing my eyes to blur and my mind to race. As it spoke, I can see the axis of all creation merging and twisting. I was able to manage to say, "What do you want?" The being stopped moving. The sound the rings were making was akin to rusty metal being ripped. The song of metal scraping against metal is all I can hear. And in an instant, I heard nothing. The darkness was all gone. I looked around, and time was frozen. All there was me and it. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains, and upon the hills, and under every green tree. It spoke to me. It felt like my very soul was shaking, and I cannot stand on my own feet. What does that even mean? Why are you doing this? I let out with all my remaining strength. I took a deep breath and was able to pull myself up and stare this thing down. My child, you know not of what's to come. You must follow. I am your shepherd, and you are my flock. Listen to your heart, and hear my love, and feel my intent. All of this is but a fleeting existence to the greater tomorrow. The child, even your family here, are nothing but mere devices in a greater story. Fuck you, I said, as loud as I can push out of my exhausted body. Child, I gave you what you wanted most, yet you still deny me? The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. It said. The sound of fluttering wings is all I heard. Time returned normally. I turned to see my family, my brother and father. Something was wrong. They were staring at me with massive grins, inhuman grins. Their smile kept growing, and slowly, I can hear the squelching of the flesh tearing as the face keeps distorting. I reached out to them to try and stop whatever this was, but I was frozen, forced to watch. Blood was pouring from their mouths, and they were crying as they feebly reached out to me, arms outstretched. I can see their arms twitching as they lost full control of their own body. It was then I heard the trumpets again, but this time, it was distorted, as if played off-key. It was then my brother grabbed the bicep on his right arm and dug his finger into his flesh. Blood rushed out and sprayed on the floor as he dug into his arm. The sound of tendons snapping and his flesh sloughing off his arm was sickening. I watched in forced horror as my brother was pulling his muscles out of his arm, removing the tendons and spraying blood on my face and painting the room in a dark red hue. It wasn't over. I saw my brother after removing all the muscle in his arms and stripping his flesh. He then stared into my eyes. He slowly grabs the top half of his mouth and the bottom half. With separate arms, he split open his head, leaving nothing but the top part hanging on a thread as his body makes a sickening thud on the ground. I was forced to look at my father as we were released, but only for a moment. At that time, I rushed towards him and held him in my arms, both of us not saying a word. In a short time, I heard my father start to gurgle. I reeled back to look at him. I wish I never did. His body was melting as a dark black liquid started to extrude out of every possible opening on his head. The smell was awful, like a decaying animal, but much more pungent. I watched as I see my father slowly turn into a human meat puddle, bone and all. His very flesh melting into my own hands and his bones crumbling to dust. I was left alone again. Even the walls around the room started to decay. The darkness swallowed me once more. Shortly after, I felt it watching me. I swear, I can hear this fucking thing that took my family a second time weeping. After I turned to see it, it was crying tears of blood. I felt nothing but anger as I yelled every curse in the book. I ended my tirade with, "I will never help you or your kind. I will let this world burn before I bow to a monster like you." Shortly after, I woke up. I sprang out of bed and splashed water on my face. The horns and the sounds this thing was plaguing me with stopped. A moment of reprieve. These images of my family are still in my head. Why am I being tortured? Why am I chosen to bear this burden, whatever it may be? Sometimes the good has wicked intent, I suppose. I know one thing for sure. Fuck them. I have to log off. but I hope you guys stay safe and far away from here. Until next time, take care. Hello, Alex again. You guys keep coming back and checking on me, and I appreciate it. The past few nights have been really hard on me. Every night I see my loved ones, and every night they take them away. I feel like I'm being tortured, and the only reason is because I am a saint. I don't want it. This title is a burden. Recently, the townsfolk have been acting really strange, and last night was even worse. At this point, I'm fearing that these things are going to take me too. It all started in the morning. It felt normal at first. I woke up, made coffee, and ate some eggs in a basket, just like my father used to make. I decided to turn on my radio tower to start broadcasting music as I normally would, when what seems like a woman started pounding on my window. Immediately, this made me spill my boiling hot coffee on my freshly pulled out of the dryer pans. I yelled in pain. "What the fuck? Ah!" Once I pulled myself together, I see this woman staring at me through my window. She was covered in blood. Her eyes were white as marbles, and she was smiling. Shortly after, she started banging on the window again. This time I got to see it. Her hands were missing, and it was just a bloody stub with bits of flesh hanging on it. I dropped down behind my desk and almost vomited. This lady was my neighbor, Mrs. Jacobson. Normally she would come by and hand me the newspaper. She and I weren't friends, more like friendly neighbors. It's just my mail would often end up at her place. I didn't know what to do, as she kept pounding on the window with each consecutive hit, making a sickening squelching noise as the blood-covered stump slapped on my window, leaving more and more blood and viscera behind. I stayed behind my desk, as the image of her unearthly smile is burned into my brain. It wasn't more than a few minutes when it stopped. It was then I decided to slowly peek over the edge. I just saw her standing there, staring at me. No. Through me, I can feel her gaze pierce my soul. She slowly opened her mouth, and it started to stretch an inhuman length as her mouth easily grew to be about 1 foot long. "What the fuck do you want?" I yelled. She just kept looking with her mouth wide open. It was at this moment I went to the window and just shut the blinds. I can hear her yelling. Nothing that makes sense. It was more just random ghoulish howling with a voice that was far too deep for her. I called the government guys in the church. "Hey, you guys said I should call if anything is out of the ordinary. Well, right now, Mrs. Jacobson is outside my home, banging on my window with a knob and screaming like she's possessed." I waited a few seconds and heard nothing. "Hello?" I asked, annoyed. "We have sent a team. Lock your doors and don't let anyone or anything in." I looked around and just said, "Okay, can do." My office, where I run the radio out of, has very heavy oak doors. It was carved by my father and was made so thick and heavy it blocked out sound from our house. My guess was, so no ambient noise can bother his work. I rushed to my office doors, and right before I can close it, I heard my front door burst open. It was her. She lifted her only hand, pointed at me with her freakishly open mouth, and this time, her eyes were completely white. She screamed an ungodly scream and started full sprint running at me. Now, my hallway wasn't very long, but I was able to slam the door shut and deadbolt the door. She started banging on my door, and I can barely hear her screams. It felt like hours of her just non-stop pounding my door and screaming. I was stopped abruptly when I heard people faintly yelling for her to get on the fucking ground, followed shortly after by gunshots. I then heard the men yelling with blood-curdling screams. The bullets they shot left small holes in my door, large enough for me to look through them. When I peer through one of the holes, I see this crazy lady devouring these heavily armed men. The sounds of bones crashing in her hideous maw, the twisting and grinding sinew and blood that squirts out of these men as she reaches in them to pull a large chunk out. I couldn't look away, but I was absolutely mortified by this beast of a woman I thought she was. I kept looking at her grotesque features and noticed her body was healing slowly, growing together. The color in her skin was coming back. She slowly turned her head all the way around like she was an owl. I can hear her spine cracking in the pressure. She could sense me watching her. We locked eyes, and she stood up and slowly turned around, keeping eyes locked on me. It was then she sprinted at the door, scaring the shit out of me. I fell backwards as I can see her eyes now, a bright white, peering through one of the holes. She then spoke. "And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee." She spoke in a loud, thunderous tone. It was so loud, it made me disoriented. I yelled back, "What do you want, you crazy bitch?" As my vision slowly came back to normal, she spoke again. "Child, you are a key part. You will recognize your role soon enough." Right after, I saw bright white lights and heard the sound of trumpets blaring. It felt like the whole world was shaking. Items were falling off my shelves and my roof cracked as the light got brighter and hotter. It all stopped, and the light vanished. The residual heat was still there. But Mrs. Jacobson, or the thing she was gone. I opened the door slowly. All I saw was the bodies of the men and ashes on the floor. My carpet was stained a dark crimson, and the smell of iron and burnt popcorn filled the air. I decided to shut my door and lock it again and called the command center that was in the church. They asked what happened. I explained it all and told them, "Come get these men off my floor, and I'm not leaving until this room is safer. I will not be killed by some old lady." On the other end, all I hear is, "Understood. You need to be safe there and bunker down." I hung up and started to leaving this note. Right now, they are cleaning the carpet and removing all the evidence. I overheard them saying they found a slime on some of the bodies. I don't know what to do. Whatever happens next, I sure hope I can end these damn monsters. If you guys know anything on what to do or how to stop this, let me know. I fear my time is coming to an end. The sound of horns and chanting is louder than ever. I can hear these things whispering in my ear describing horrible and graphic battles and random acts of violence. I've grown so tired, and sleep is rare. Please, I just want to die, but they won't let me. I'm going to try to fall asleep now. I'll keep y'all posted. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. These words have been stuck in my head, playing on repeat like a broken record. I can feel my sanity fading as sleep deprivation sets in. I feel like eyes are watching my every move, people narrating my every thought and feeling. I even stopped playing music as more and more townsfolk go missing. It's only a handful that are left from the town originally. For the people who try to help me, the holy water in the church is locked up for some reason, and I did sew some crosses on myself. The pain of doing so wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's nothing compared to the mental anguish I've been dealing with. So thank you for all the kind words and suggestions. Now, recently, besides the constant scripture running in my head, and the occasional townsfolk hulking out and killing more soldiers, it's been quiet. No one leaves their home. I don't get calls about the radio, and everyone seems to be surviving off the government rations they've been giving us. If anyone was wondering, it's pretty bland. Just boxes of potato flakes, off-brand water that tastes like pool water, and bread with some bologna that looks grey. Day in and day out, I feel like I'm not being protected, but contained, like a prisoner. They even stopped answering my calls, which started this morning. However, some real shit went down, and I'm not sure if anyone other than me and maybe some of the town is still alive. It was shortly after I got ignored when I tried to call into HQ and report a dead body in the street. It was more than 10 minutes when I started hearing the horns again. This time, I learned the horns only play when someone is being targeted. I know it seems inhuman to say this, but I made test subjects out of my neighbors. Once I hear the horns, I go to all of my windows and look around, see what or who is being targeted. And like clockwork, I hear it. Someone starts to scream. Then, silence. After so many times this happened, I've become numb to the cries of the people. I can't stop thinking they are the lucky ones being taken out and not having to be tortured by these things much longer. I'm pulling away from the point. So, after the horns this morning, I looked all over the town and saw nothing this time. I kept looking, and it seems they were all safe somehow. Shortly after, I heard gunfire coming from the church. They were being taken down. I started to hear someone calling out to me. A very familiar voice, but I couldn't make it out. All of a sudden, my body moved of its own accord. It was helplessly moving toward the church. It's terrifying to think you have no control of your body, safety or life. With this, all is left to the will of these angels. Last time I checked, angels don't devour humans. At least, it was never spoken about. As I started to pass the first gate, the smell of gunpowder and blood attacked my senses. It was so powerful my eyes began to burn, and I could taste the blood in the back of my throat. My body slowly marched toward the front door. Bullets were flying through the door. One struck me. The pain was unbearable. I could sense time slowing down, or maybe my senses were speeding up. The bullets that went through the door also pierced my chest, arms and neck. Each bullet that ripped into my flesh had me experiencing the pain for what felt like years, as time seems to be frozen. I was feeling the projectiles tear into me, and I felt every inch give way to the metal. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't cry out in pain or run away. The tearing of my flesh and piercing of my organs got so extreme, I felt like I was going to expire any second. Have you ever felt your heart being pierced by hot lead, or having the feeling of your own chest cavity filling with blood? This must be hell, I thought as my body slowly marches forward. The smoke in the church began to clear as I saw the absolute massacre this was. Bodies were impaled on crosses and contorted in ways that remind me of a horror movie. People were fused to the floor and their faces missing. One of them I stepped on, making a squelching noise as my foot peeled away a layer of their skin, and with a horrible plop as it fell to the floor. No matter what I did or thought, I couldn't stop. My body felt like it was being controlled like a puppet on strings. When I got to the basement, the door was ripped off the hinges with the door itself pushed into a wall. Flashbacks as a child ran through my mind. I remember playing hide and seek in this basement with some of the other kids in the town, many of which I've seen eating other people in all this chaos. I remember my brother and me hiding behind a stack of chairs. We pressed ourselves as low to the ground as possible. We giggled as someone nearly found us. We only got up when I can hear the other boys yell, "Alright, we give up. Y'all can come out now." As I stood up, I saw a black dot on my brother's neck. Shortly after, he yelled in pain and ran out. It was a black widow who bit him. My brother was rushed to the hospital, which was almost an hour away. I held his hand and kept telling him, "It'll be okay, little bro. It was just a small spider. You will be fine." Of course, my brother was milking the attention. Some of the best acts I've ever seen were from this moment. After a few hours in the hospital, he was discharged, and ever since then, he has been afraid of spiders. This memory, even with all the pain and crazy shit, made me smile. It was a relief that was short-lived as I approached the pastor's quarters. The lights in the hall were flickering, and to the left and right of me were people standing at the wall looking at me, all of them jet black eyes and pale skin. The people of this town were just meat suits for these things. I've grown a hatred for them, parading around doing unholy things to people who I considered friends and family. Even when I tried to think of memories I had with them, these images of these things were replacing them, corrupting my very thoughts. As I passed all the people, I finally got to the door. It flew open by itself, and I can hear the crunching of bone and tearing of flesh. It was my brother. He was eating the one blind agent. I saw him ripping into the man, his jaw unhinging as he shovels viscera into his gullet. The worst part was the teeth. He meticulously yanked each tooth out, and with a shiver-inducing crunch as he pulverized each one in his massive maw. I could only wait as he was in a trance-like state. I was forced to watch my little brother, or what was my little brother, eat the ice and then bursting liquid like peeled grapes. After the thing was full, he stood up and turned towards me, looking into my eyes. His eyes were dark. It showed no light. It was all black, and I can feel an overwhelming sense of malice as it just stared at me. My body was still unable to move as it slowly closed the distance. With each step, the feeling of dread grew, and it felt like my heart was getting louder. I could only think to myself, is this what true fear feels like? Will I live another moment? He got in front of me and said one thing. A war is coming, and you are a major piece in it. Will you stand by humanity, or those winged beasts who watch over and terrorize you? I cannot choose for you, child. But know this, I do love you. This oddly felt genuine. The feelings of dread and malice were dissipating. I don't know how to describe it, other than it felt natural. Child, I will not harm your brother, as he agreed to help me speak to you. The angels above cast him aside like a broken toy. However, I found use in the boy. And together, we can take over the heavens. Pray that we succeed, for I have seen the throne of God, and it was empty. Who was he? What is he? Suddenly this thing reached out and tapped my forehead, sending me into a deep sleep. I woke up nearly instantly and was in panic. Covered in sweat, I surveyed my surroundings. Everything was too quiet, so I rushed to look out the window and towards the church. And it was all normal again. I quickly called the operations leader, and they instantly picked up.
Yes, Alex? Are you okay?
How were they alive? I saw my brother eat him in front of my own two eyes. I replied in a rushed and worried tone. What day is it? How long have I been asleep?
Well, it's Sunday, and I would say you've been silent for 2 days. I guess that old lady stressed you out. How are you feeling?
I can hear them typing in the background, as if he was typing down our conversation. I'm fine. Just had a really bad dream. How many people in the town are left? I asked.
Most of them are left. Why? Everything okay?
At this point, I decided to look outside. I see people walking around and talking like nothing happened. I'll be okay. Thank you. It must have been a vivid dream. So, I just hung up there, not wanting to speak about it more. I didn't want to go through it again. After, I fell backwards onto my bed, breathing in deep and letting it out. The trumpets aren't playing. It was just silence. I'm still shaken up by this, since it felt so real. I guess I'm going to start my radio up and pretend nothing happened. One question is on my mind. Can my brother still be saved? I may never know. I'm exhausted mentally, so this is enough for today. I will keep you guys updated. So please, pray for me. I may need it. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Peter 5:8. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Ephesians 6:12. What is time? Is it just a construct of men to keep with the pace of our existence? Or is it something more? Something malleable? I can't shake the feeling that I've done all this before. The existential dread of this whole situation seems so familiar. Oh, right. Sorry, you don't know who I am. My name is Alex. I live in this rather small farming city. We have a church on a hill and one very local grocery store. And somehow there's a Dollar General too. Life here is rather simple and easy. I wake up, I turn on my studio, and I broadcast music for the town. It's nothing special, just classic rock and some country, but I make decent money off it. And recently, I've been experiencing stranger and stranger events. But it all feels like a dream. It all started when military trucks and other large equipment started being hauled into town. They took over the church as a base of operations, I'm guessing. They even put large fences and barbed wire all around it. Whatever they were doing must have been serious. They came to my door and asked to use the air raid siren. The only way to access it was to enter my shed and turn it on manually. When I told them this, they just said, "That's fine. We will just go into your backyard once a week to run a test. So, don't mind us." Yeah, that's fine. Just knock on the door before you go back there just in case. I'm in a stand your ground state, so I didn't want to catch a charge for taking out a trespasser. They just looked at me and smiled and said, "Will do, Chief," and then left and got into his truck and drove off. I look around and across the street from me, I can see my brother mowing his lawn, so I walked up to him wanting to speak to him. "Hey, big bro," he said. He stops the engine of his mower. "Hey, little dude, how have you and the wife been?" He smiled and said, "Great, but we have big news." I looked at him puzzled. "Well, what's the news?" "Sammy is pregnant. We just tested this morning. And I feel like, since you helped me in my life so much, you can be the baby's official godparent and uncle, of course." I cracked a large smile ear to ear. "Whoa, I'm so happy for you guys." My brother then just put his arms around me and we shared a hug. It was nice, considering all we've been through together. "Why don't we have dinner here tonight? I'm grilling ribs and my wife is making potato salad. You know it's your favorite." I grabbed my chin. "That sounds perfect. Been wanting some home-cooked meals. I've been swamped with work and school recently." He just said, "Alright, see you then. I need to mow. It won't cut itself." I waved goodbye and walked back to my home so I can start the next playlist on the radio. I get home, and when I open the door, a wave of emotion hit me like a ton of bricks. I started crying, but I don't know why. My heart was racing and I could feel anxiety rushing in. I tried composing myself enough to get to my bed. I just laid there sobbing. Why am I sad? Why is this happening? I thought to myself. Shortly after, I get a knock on my door. It somehow pulled me out of my anxiety attack, which is good. I opened the door, and a man with what looks to be cataracts on his eyes greeted me. "Hello, Mr. York. How are you?" I looked at him a little puzzled. "Just call me Alex. I'm doing fine. Can I help you with something?" I felt a bit put off by this man. He looked to be blind, but he climbed my stairs without aid and drove here. "Yes, we need to use the siren, and we want you to stay inside for a few hours. It's for your own safety." I started to panic a little, but kept it under so he wouldn't notice. "Sure, it's in the shed." The man looked at me and just said, "Thank you. Just lock your door and close your blinds. The siren will tell you the rest." "Aren't you in danger too?" I said. He just started to walk away and yelled out, "I'll be fine, Alex." The anxiety was welling up in my throat again. So in a hurry, I locked my door and closed my blinds. Shortly after, I heard the sirens go off.
Stay inside and go to the nearest room without windows. If you can, close the blinds and cover your ears and eyes. This is not a drill. Do not leave for any reason. If someone is caught leaving, they will be marked as a threat. If you hear knocks at the window or door, do not answer even if it's your family or friends, and even if they are in a dire situation. Again, this is not a drill, and we will let you know when to come out.
Oddly specific. I hope my brother will be okay. I waited there in my office, and I hear a song on the radio playing. It is one of my favorite songs. "Time Is on My Side" by the Rolling Stones. It reminds me of my father a lot. Him and my mom used to sing this song to us, the Rolling Stones being his favorite band. All this daydreaming was cut short as I heard a gunshot across the street. I peeked through the blinds, and I see my brother. He was being attacked. This thing that looked like our friend Aaron, but with grotesque and elongated limbs with a massive jaw. My instincts told me to hide, but I couldn't let my brother die. So I ran out and sprinted towards his home. I needed to catch my breath, but I can see his front door ripped off its hinges. I was about to look inside, being cautious. Maybe I can catch this thing off guard, I thought to myself. So I peered into his home. It was the worst thing I can imagine. A fine mist of blood lingered in the air. I can taste it in the back of my throat. I almost gagged when I looked further in. It was Sammy. This thing was devouring Sammy. It sat, hunched over her body, scooping blood and viscera into its gullet. The grinding of bone and the squelching sound of flesh spraying the wall in blood was enough to cause me to temporarily black out. I must have quickly regained consciousness as I see the figure stand up with no sign of my brother or his wife. No blood on the floor, just a pile of black ash. The thing turned to me, but as we locked eyes, it started to distort my vision. Every time I tried to focus on it, it would disappear. But I looked slightly away, and in my peripherals, it looked to have changed shape. Massive wings, 7, no, 8 of them, circling something in the middle of it all. It slowly glided to me and I was frozen in place, unable to move or react. My chest felt like it was going to explode. And then, it spoke. Its voice sounded like a rusty can being scraped by a fork, with the faint sound of horns in the distance. Its thunderous voice shook my very existence as it spoke. It said, "Be not afraid, child. You will be saved, as you are a saint." I keep thinking back. Where have I heard this? I can't remember. Was it a dream? In that moment, the massive wing slowly moved toward me. Everything went black. I saw things I couldn't make out, darting across the void in my mind. I heard a scream in my ear, and something got louder. Was it the sound of a trumpet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blasts from a trumpet. No, it was 7. The thunderous voice spoke in my dreamscape. "We will meet again, child. A war is coming." I woke slowly, but in the distance, I could hear the flapping of wings and the siren go off once more.
Civilians' coast is clear. I repeat, coast is clear. We ask you to stay in your homes so we can do some research. Please bear with us a little longer. Thank you.
Within mere seconds, I was surrounded by men armed to the teeth. "Holy fuck, he's alive!" One of them picked me up, and 3 other men rushed into my brother's home. What happened to my brother? I was barely able to stand on my own. My head was still spinning. "He's gone. I'm sorry." I gained a bit more consciousness and realized what he had just said. "What the fuck do you mean gone?" I was fuming. Something just ate my brother and his wife. "We can't explain right now. Just go home and rest. We will send someone to speak to you." I reluctantly walked back. But what can I do? Fight the armed men who were just trying to help me? It wasn't their fault. I clambered back into my home and went straight to my bed and collapsed. I can't put my finger on it, but I sense déjà vu. It's all too familiar. I can't shake this feeling. As I laid on my bed, reliving the thoughts of my brother dying and seeing his wife being devoured, this whole ordeal seemed so surreal. It wasn't but an hour later when I heard knocking on my door. I got up to answer it, and to my surprise, it was the same blind man. "Hello, Mr. York. I need to speak to you." I waved him in and sat at the kitchen table. "Can I get you anything to drink?" What's your name?" He smiled. "My name is Lucy. And yes, do you have a Coke?" I blinked a few times. "Alright, Lucy. Coming right up." I brought 2 cans of Coke, slid him his across my table. "So, what was that thing? And what do you want from me?" He takes a deep sip of the drink and lets out a sigh. "Alex, we know who you are and what you are. Haven't you felt like you've done this before? It's time to give up on resisting, Alex. We need you." I looked at him puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" He stood up and placed his glasses on the table. His eyes were pitch black. Light didn't even shine on them. It was all empty, like an endless void. What is wrong with your eyes?" He chuckled lightly. "Don't worry, child. Join my cause, and we shall return your brother." I started to sweat. My heart was racing faster than my mind. What is this man? It was then he reached out and grabbed my hand. I was unable to move as I saw the future. Life and death, the start of the universe, and the decay of it all flooded my mind. I felt I was everywhere at the same time. He suddenly let go, and all the vision stopped. "Do you understand now, child? We were destined to take over the heavens. You were meant for greater things. I can't believe it. So I asked. This is all too much right now. Can we do this later? He shook his head. You have until midnight, or all of this will come full circle. I looked at him and let out a long sigh. Fine. I need to do something first. He just got up and walked out the door. It looked like he understood. So, here I am now. I know it's a lot to unpack, but I can't shake this feeling of déjà vu. I guess I'm signing off. Until next time. Alex.